Kummersdorf is the name of an estate around 25 kilometers south of Berlin. Until 1945, Kummersdorf hosted the weapon office of the German army, which ran a development center for future weapons. Kummersdorf was also the location for the analyses, studies and testing of various German and captured Allied tanks and armored fighting vehicles. Many tanks from all fronts, from North Africa to the Eastern Front, were tested there, with American tanks being multiple variant models of the M4 Sherman tank, the M3 Lee, the M10 tank destroyer, amongst several others, and Soviet tanks consisting of the T-34, the mainstay of Soviet armored forces. Albert Speer referred to the tank's testing station at Kummersdorf during the 1942 offensive against the Soviet Union. The station showed that the treads or motor of a heavy tank need repairs every 500 miles. This was a limiting factor in the offensive as supply lines became stretched and spare parts carried by the tanks were consumed. The German army also tested new German tanks there, including the 188-ton Panzer VIII Maus super heavy tank. On May 14, 1943, a wooden model of the Maus was presented to Hitler and his staff. 150 of the new tank were to be built. However, all work on super heavy tanks was stopped in 1944 and the planned series production of the tank was cancelled. Only 2 copies were completed. The first prototype was assembled by Alkit in December 1943. Tests started the same month, with a mock-up turret fitted of the same weight as the real turret. In June 1944 the production turret, with armament, was used for tests. In March 1944 the second prototype was delivered. It differed in many details from the first prototype. In mid-1944, the second prototype was fitted with a power plant and the first produced Maus turret. This turret was fitted with a 128mm gun, a coaxial 75mm gun and a coaxial MG-34 machine gun. The first prototype was supposed to be fitted with the second produced turret, but this never happened. By July 1944, Krupp was in the process of producing 4 more Maus hulls, but they were ordered to halt production and scrap these. Krupp stopped all work on it in August 1944. Meanwhile, the second prototype started tests in September 1944, fitted with a Daimler-Benz diesel engine, new electric steering system and a Skoda Works-designed running gear and tracks. The experimental program for the Maus was determined on November 1, 1943. It consisted of a factory test by Porsche, a road test at the Kummersdorf Motor Vehicle Testing Center, diving and towing tests and shooting tests at the Hillersleben Army Research Institute. Contrary to the instructions of Minister Speer, who insisted on personal approval for every trip, the Maus was driven out of the hall and back again for the first time on December 24, 1943 on the premises of the Alkit Company in Berlin-Back. After the first successful driving test at Alkit, the Maus was subjected to initial tests at the Kummersdorf Army Research Institute near Berlin. Due to repeated necessary repairs and adjustments, problems in obtaining spare parts and heavy bombing attacks in northern Germany, it was decided to carry out further tests near the Porsche factory on the site of the tank barracks in Böblingen. The Panzer Replacement Department 7 was stationed there in the Hindenburg barracks. The vehicle 205-1 was transported there by rail from January 11, 1944, although the vehicle only arrived there on January 14 because the special railway transport wagon, loading wagon, with 14 axles for extremely heavy loads, which was also being tested, was not available, was allowed to drive through tunnels and over railway bridges. This was followed by extensive driving tests in the area of the tank barracks, during which reports were repeatedly written. The vehicle 205-1 with the replacement weight also received the 3-color camouflage paint there in March. Without engine and turret, the second chassis, 205-2, arrived in Böblingen in a towing condition from Alkit on March 10, 1944. It wasn't until May 3, 1944 that a tower arrived there, still without the 2 guns. After the guns had been installed, this was first assembled on June 9, 1944 by mechanics from the Krupp Company. Around October 1944, the new diesel engine arrived and was immediately installed in the 205/2 vehicle. Photos show that the only existing turret was then mounted on the second chassis and the entire vehicle was given a 3-color camouflage paint job. Ready to drive and armed, they were immediately transferred to Kummersdorf. The vehicle 205-1 with the replacement weight was also moved there. At the end of April 1945, both prototypes were at the Army test site in Kummersdorf. The Maus 205-2 was ultimately blown up by the German personnel in the area of the main camp. According to some theories, this vehicle may have been intended for the defense of the Army headquarters. The tower was thrown down and the lower hull was practically destroyed. The Maus 205/1, which was left behind at the Kummersdorf firing range and still had the replacement turret, was also damaged in the interior by an explosion, but was externally intact. The Red Army captured both vehicles and mounted the turret of Maus 205/2 on the hull of Maus 205/1. On May 4, the vehicle was sent to Kubinka for testing. The tests were completed in 1951. After sitting outdoors for years, the vehicle has been on display in the Kubinka Tank Museum since 1978. In 2000, the vehicle was given the original camouflage of the prototype 205 and 2. With the end of the Second World War, research activities also ended in Kummersdorf, which was occupied by the Red Army. Subsequently, units of the 64th Mobile Brigade of the Group of Soviet Forces in Germany and the Western Group were baracked here. Since the West Group withdrew in 1994, the site has been waiting for a new use. Until 2012, the private Kummersdorf Technology Museum was housed in some halls. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and to make sure you don't miss my future work, please make sure you are subscribed to my channel and press the bell notification button. Thank you and see you in the next video.